We have Vineet Arya here with us today. Welcome to the show, Vineet.
Thanks.
First, let's start with how did you arrive at being the CMO at the company where you are at right now, and what path brought you here?
Well, to be frank, I was working as an employee for many big MNCs in my career, like any other professional would have done. But one fine day in 2014, right, I decided saying that enough that I've been working with big MNCs, and I think I did my whole circle of being a senior professional in marketing, and then I suddenly decided that India being a startup country, almost like a startup country, and that too in Bangalore, which is almost like a Silicon Valley of India. So I said, why not try my hand in working for startups, because it will be a very interesting journey, because then you understand how the brands are being built or marketing is done from the scratch. And secondly, I also figured out there is a huge need of an experienced, seasoned professional across industries, forget about marketing for the time being, but other verticals, where startup would need. And they were struggling to get good experienced people because of two issues. One is affordability, that startup will not be able to afford that kind of a salary, and also getting access to the right people. So I said, with my kind of an experience, probably I can work with some startups and help them to build a brand from the scratch, and also it will also get me a lot of happiness, internal passion that I've created a small baby and make it as a bigger brand if I'm successful. So that's how I started working various startups, and I coined this term called outsource CMO, wherein you work as an outsource chief marketing officer. And I use the word outsource because then you are not as part of the team, but you are pseudo part of the team. And that's how I came into contact with a couple of startups, and currently the company Vedantu, for which I am the outsource CMO, this is my fourth startup in the last 2 years that I've managed to help them with marketing and communications.
Does this also mean that you are invested in the company, or?
No, I don't invest in the company because most of the time when I enter with a startup, they already have raised some money. Because now what happens, there are two stages of startup. One is a typically bootstrap, where you start with the concept and evaluate a concept. Once that is done, then you go and raise first round of funding, and that's where you actually need to go out in the market, spread your brand, concept, sell your product and all that. That's where I come in. So the way that I work is typically I take a fees, which is a monthly fees, depending on the scope of the work, and some equity in the company. Now equity, because the startup also wants that a long-term relationship, and they expect my skin to be in the game. Not just monetarily, I mean, it's very easy, because if I get an X fees from one startup, tomorrow another startup says, okay, I'll give you X plus one, and as a human I may get tempted. But if I have the skin in my game, I would probably know that if the startup grows, I also grow.
Perfect. Like, if I have to ask you, what's one problem that you are best solving for your clients, what would that be?
Typically, how does... See, most of the startups I've seen in my experience are being done by a domain expert. So he may be a technical guy, he may be a sales guy, he may be a good HR guy, he may be XYZ. Very rarely a strong marketing guy does. I mean, not that there are, but majority of them. So they don't understand how to take a product and market it.
Right.
Because they're mostly occupied in building the product. But once the product is right, that's where they actually find it difficult. And with the limited resources, how to best utilize it. So it's always a chicken and egg story. With the limited money, with a strong product, how do you create that impact? And probably that's what I specialize in. Purely because of my experience in working with different companies and different locations, different geographies. Plus, over a period of time, you get a domain knowledge as how things work. So I probably can be able to preempt things in terms of you shouldn't do this, you should not do this is not the right time, probably you should do this 3 months or 6 months down the line. And that's what the startups are looking at, faster go-to-market strategy, limited money, greater impact and agility.
Right. So you said you worked with other companies in the past, and if it's not confidential, or if it's if there's nothing confidential about it, if it can be told, who have you worked for in the past and what have you done?
So I've worked with companies like AMD, We are into microprocessors. They are the only two companies, Intel and AMD,
Right.
in that. And then I worked with SanDisk, which is a storage company. And then I've also worked with Tata Power Solar, which is the Tata Group company, and I've been managing marketing for all the three companies. And besides that, I have also worked with agencies like Publicis and Accor Group before I moved to Bangalore in Delhi.
Okay, that's great. So, what are you most passionate about professionally? Like, what most excites you about work and the contribution that you can make, especially to the startups?
See, first of all, obviously, like-minded people. I really forget about the age difference, but they're so open.
Right.
They're willing to experiment. They're willing to do anything that that makes the startup successful. It's not that they are willing to go only on tried and tested path. And the good thing is that, good or bad, I don't know what you say there, but there are no policies, there are no framework, there are no definition, there are no boundaries. Whereas in an MNC company, most of things are defined, so you have to play within that boundary. So here you can cross your boundary, you can come back, you can cross again, you can come back. So that gives a lot of flexibility, and which also makes you free from your mind. So there is no fear. Not the fear of failure, fear of, if I do this, what will my boss say? What will the management say? Whether they like it or not. So most of the time you work for the management and not work for the company or the product. That's what my experience is in the MNCs. But in the startups, you actually work for the concept or the product. You don't work for the entrepreneur. Because for him, his objective is also the same. He's not working to be a CEO or thing, because it is his baby and he wants so that's what gives me a lot more freedom, I would say, to take various decisions. Marketing is all about, marketing is not, it's not a science that you have to, it's not a process that you have to do step 1, step 2, step 3. Sometimes you have to go to directly to a step 4, for example, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that it's not like a techie process. There's no flow chart, right? So I think the freedom of doing what you think is right and other people listening to it, that's what startup is all about.
Great. So, what would be one of the greatest or biggest challenges that you have faced recently, and how did you overcome that challenge?
See, obviously the biggest challenge is they have very limited money.
Right.
But they have to prove lot many things within that limited money. And so your decisions, you cannot afford to make bad decisions.
Right.
Because not that people, see, the good thing about startup, if you make a bad decision in an MNC, it comes on to you. Whereas if you make a bad decision in a startup, you feel bad because you wasted the money which probably a startup would have utilized somewhere else. So you feel bad, you feel guilty about it, right? So obviously when you have a limited money, you have to ensure that most of the decisions has to be right, so that the money that is being spent is well spent and you get a good return. So obviously this is a very big challenge that I see. And secondly, sometimes, especially with a couple of startups, they really don't understand the importance of marketing at a very early stage. They think that marketing can be done probably when you become a 500 crore company or a 1000 crore company. But I say, even if you are a 1 crore company, you should start marketing in a very smaller way also. It's not that marketing means or branding means that you have to give ads in newspapers or TV or billboards and everything. There are other modes of normal communication and marketing, right? So sometimes you really need to convince the people marketing is required for whatever you do, even at a smaller stage. So these are the two challenges that I think I face.
How do you help startups conquer or solve?
Solve.
Right. So, Vineet, what would be, if I ask you, like, what are you passionate about personally, something that you really can't stop talking about, what would that be?
I don't stop talking about people because I've been probably traveled in my past professional life. I've traveled a lot, so that's one thing I really enjoy. Trying out different, as a marketing guy, I think, see different behavior of different people. How does Indian behave, how does a American behave, how does a person in Europe behave. So that's how you relate. How does different consumer behave? So that also brings about talking about different communities, fashion, and what else? Meet as many people as I can. I mean, professionally also it helps me. Personally also it helps me because if you're in communication and marketing, I think that's one trait. You cannot be an introvert and be in marketing.
Right. So where can we find you when you're not working? Like, what's your favorite way to spend a weekend?
So obviously I will play. On a weekend I have to play.
Right.
I mean I have to start both my Saturday and Sundays playing. Maybe it's because I'm addicted to it, so more towards shooting it keeps me fit and running, and also get connected to my group of friends that we play together. So otherwise you hardly get time to meet them. So I saw both the purposes. And then after that I would rather have a good meal, make sure that I catch up on my fondness of different food on a weekend, and obviously give as much time as to my family over a weekend.
So you said you play what? Any professional
I play
sports?
badminton, yes.
Badminton. Okay. Interesting. So with respect to being the chief marketing officer, CMO role, how long have you been doing this role? And
As after I quit my job, I started in April 2014.
I see. So earlier to that, you were also in the marketing.
I was in the marketing,
Ah,
but
okay.
as an employee of big companies.
Got it. Got it. So is there? Where did you grow up, and are you still there, or did you grow up here?
No, I was born and brought up in Delhi. I finished all my
Okay.
education, primary and secondary education in Delhi. And I had to move to Bangalore because of I joined a company called AMD, which I told earlier. And they had their office in Bangalore. Initially they had in Delhi, but they moved office in Bangalore, just like any other IT company would have done in India. So I had to move with the company, and that's how I am in Bangalore for past 12 years.
Right. I remember in my childhood, because I was born and brought up in Bangalore, there was another AMD, Advanced Micronic Devices. So that is different, right?
That is
So what
a
you're talking about is the
Chip.
AMD
Process.
from the US.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Processor company.
Any volunteer activities that you are crazy about, or part of non-profits or any other thing?
So normally, I'm not associated with any organized NGO or something, but the place where I stay in is a huge community. There are 3,000 apartments. So I kind of work there for the betterment of the society. For example, one of the things that are plaguing in our country is the waste management.
Exactly.
Right. So I thought maybe we should do something at least in these apartments that I stay. Those people should have some awareness about ways to segregate waste and all that. So these are the things that I kind of contribute. Otherwise, like for example, I have made a rule in my life that I'll never donate money to anybody. I don't feel good giving money. Instead, help them with other things. Like if he's hungry, give them food rather than giving money for food. If he's needing some job, give him some work to earn rather than just spoiling their habits by giving them money. But that's again more of my personal thing. But in the organized thing,
Yeah, as there is a Chinese saying which goes like, if you for a hungry man you feed him fish, one day you solve his problem of hunger for one day, but you teach him how to fish, he can solve his hunger problem for his entire lifetime. I think you are referring to that kind of a thing.
that's right.
Right. So any awards or medallions, personal, professional, anything?
A couple of recognitions from the past companies that I've worked for, but that was not a public thing, it was internally
Right.
with the companies that I've been recognized with. As far as industry kind of thing is that I yet to achieve anything like that, but I'm pretty happy what I'm doing. I don't work for recognition, I work for what I'm happy with, and that's the best recognition. When the people say, Vineet, I like what you do, I think that's the best reward or recognition that you can get from any person.
So what would be your 3 pieces of advice for a new startup who's looking at marketing? Maybe with you or without you, what would be your 3 pieces of advice that they should be looking at, especially when it comes to your trade, which is marketing?
See, the first startup, I think they should start as early as possible.
Okay.
They should not wait, seeing that I'm not. Yeah, if you don't have a product in hand, I think first step is the moment you have a product, which is ready for the consumers, you should start marketing immediately. I mean, don't wait, let me sell the product, become a 100 crore company or a 200 crore company and then I'll do marketing. No. If your product is ready and you think it is sellable, start marketing immediately.
Right.
And see, marketing is anything is not, I don't consider marketing as a science. It is not something which is also unique. I think marketing can be done by anybody and everybody on this earth. The problem where people fail is the right time, what and when and where to do. So even if I have to, let's say, give an ad in the newspaper, if it has to be given today, you give it after 2 days, it loses its importance. Whereas giving an ad is a marketing trade, but giving it the timing is what the people should know. So for my second thing that I would want to the startup is, really suggest a startup is that don't feel that, don't have a fear of marketing, it requires a huge amount of money or only some specialist can do. Even if they can't, it's good to have a professional at your hand, but if you can't afford it as a profession, you can on your own do some basic stuff which doesn't require a huge amount of training or coaching. Only thing is you should understand what it needs to be done there and then itself. And third thing is that measure all marketing efforts that you do. Now that is very personal objectives of every company, how they measure it, but they should measure each and every marketing activity, money that they spend in whatever way their objective is. Otherwise, lot many times I see if they don't measure, after 6 months or 1 year down the line, there is a human tendency saying that nothing has happened, I wasted my money. The money is not wasted, but it's just that you didn't measure it, so you don't see the results.
Got it. So Vineet, if any of the viewers right now who are watching this video and the interview, if they have any questions, how do they reach out to you? Is there a particular way or preferred way?
The best way is to reach out to me on email because I'm extremely prompt in replying on emails. Extremely prompt. Second is if there's something very urgent that they have to reach out to me and they don't get a reply from me, they can always call me on my mobile number.
Right. So is there anything else you want to share with the viewers? Before we...
I think the best thing is do what you like. Don't have a fear, because lot many times we tend to draw good decisions because of fear. Now I'm not underlying what fear is. It can be fear of community, it can be fear of your bosses, it can be fear of your peers, or it can be fear of failure. I think, in my personal opinion, I have seen when I have taken fear out of me, the best has come out of me. And this is the change that I see when I was working in the big companies. Lot many times, a lot of my strategies were not accepted because they had a different objective, and I thought that it would have been good to accept it. But if I move out of it and then you say that, and now when I work more freely saying that, this is the best thing for a startup or this is a startup should do, and they listen, I think the results come out well. So if it's like same thing, if you get a human being free, let him be free in his own domain, you will get the best out of him. And the more you tie him, I think the less you will get out of him. And I think I've seen myself, and in my own professional thing, I've seen in the last 2 years that I've been able to free myself. I think the results are far better than what I used to produce in a controlled environment.
Wonderful. Well said, Vineet. And thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your perspectives, your wisdom, and your insights, and your 3 bits of advice for the new startup that may be looking up for some inspiration and motivation from people who have achieved a lot of things in business and in life so much. Thanks again. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you.